So in this little writing session, I'm going to write dialogue. So I'm just going to show you the various forms of dialogue here. Now you begin with a double quote, and by default, Word will give you these quotes that point inward and outward. So what I like to do is if I cut and paste dialogue that has quotes in it, I paste as normal text rather than just pasting. And that way it'll get rid of these special inward and outward double quotes that show up weird in things that don't understand them. So anyway, here let's have a dialogue between two people at a party. And we'll say, hello, Mary. And that's the way you write dialogue. You put the ending quote on it, and you put a period, you put the ending punctuation inside the dialogue. Now, we don't know who's speaking here. So one of the things that you can do is you can attribute this dialogue to a speaker. So I can say, hello, Mary, comma, double quote, Bill said, period. And that way I attribute this dialogue to a particular individual. Now notice as new people speak, you move to a new paragraph. Now if Bill had more to say, I'm glad to see you. You would put it in the same paragraph as the first thing Bill says. And this is the signal to readers that a new speaker is speaking. Why, hello. Let's just have Mary say, hello, Bill. Now, the other thing that you want to do is you want to avoid the he said, she said constantly. So you want to use a different word for said. So Mary replied, I'm glad to be here. Okay. And now we have some new dialogue. So as we switch speaker, then we move to a new line or paragraph. If it's the same speaker, then we just keep on with the dialogue. Notice that you can have more than one sentence of dialogue quoted in dialogue. I'm glad to be here. This is such a nice home. There we go. So this is the way that you have multiple pieces of dialogue being spoken by a person. What else can we say here? What about questions? Is this your first time here? Now, normally, if I attribute this, I would say, comma, Bill asked. But because this is a question mark, what I do is I replace the comma with a question mark, and this works just fine. So if I have exclamation marks or any of these terminators, why, of course not. And with the explanation mark, Mary exclaimed. So notice how we're using different things for he said, she said. We got asked, we've got replied, we've got said, we've got exclaimed. The other option that you've got is since we only have two people in the dialogue, we don't need to attribute this. Well, it's nice to have you here anyway. And then you just terminate it, and you don't need to attribute this because with a new paragraph, you're talking about a new speaker, and the new speaker, if you only have two speakers and you have a new speaker, then that's obviously the other one. So if you have two people in the dialogue, you don't need to attribute who's speaking. Now, if you have more than one, then you need to attribute that. So, thank you. And we just keep having this dialogue going on. And I don't need to attribute it at all because there's only two speakers. Now, the other thing that you can do, it's a lovely day, Bill strained his neck to look outside. So you can have some narrative in the middle of your dialogue. I hope it doesn't rain. So it's still the same speaker, so you keep it in the same paragraph. And you don't break paragraphs until there's a new speaker. But every time there is a new speaker, you break to a new paragraph. Now, this, I think, is pretty much everything you need to know about dialogue. So we have put your punctuation inside the double quotes. You can attribute, and if they have more to say, keep it on the same paragraph. Keep changing the he said, she said to something else, like Mary replied. And you can have multiple things that she says, multiple sentences. And then you don't need to attribute if you have only two speakers. And you can have little narrative asides. We're going to talk more about that in the advanced dialogue section, which is coming up after this section. So anyway, that's enough for the writing session. I'm going to save this and make it available in the next lecture as a downloadable resource. So I hope it helps out, and I'll see you in the next little lecture section, which I just added, which is I wanted to get into how to create multi-paragraph things. So we're going to look at short essays and blog posts. I'll see you there.